All right, well, hello everyone. Welcome to the first attempt at a virtual workshop to teach the Photoload method of fuel load measurement monitoring. I'm going to start off with just a little, we'll be basing our stuff off some slides, but it'll just give us a framework, but we'll mostly be communicating with each other and talking about some concepts. So let me share my screen. All right. So you are all here probably because you have some interest in monitoring, I'm guessing, right? And that's most likely because it's your job, but I suspect you also have some curiosity, things that you would like to know about that will be informed with monitoring. What we're going to be talking about today is not just monitoring, though, because I'd be a fool to try and teach you all how to monitor from behind a computer. But we're going to be introducing the concept of the Photoload method that some of you might have some familiarity with already. And we will be looking at this new app called the FuelsData app. That's specifically what we're looking at today. We're using Photoload. We'll teach that bit and then we'll practice using the app. So objectives of this workshop are to first just become familiar with the Photoload sampling method. We're not going to go crazy into detail on it. And like I say, the best way to teach fuel load measurements is by measuring fuel loads when you're outside, but we'll do our best to do that with pictures today. But we'll also be working on practicing using the FuelsData app. If you do not have the FuelsData app, I would download it now so that you can play around with it as we go through that. You can find that in any location you find your apps, whatever on whatever device you've got. So first of all, some Zoom logistics. I would like you all, there's a lot of folks here and it's fun to see who's around. So I'm gonna give you just a couple minutes to do these things. I want you to add your agency and state to your name. So on the little box that has your name on it in the upper right hand corner, there's 3 dots. You can click on that and you can click to rename. And so I'd like you to rename yourself. I mean, you can keep your actual name, but then include your agency and state within your name. And then if you haven't messed around with Zoom at all, just practice raising and lowering your hand. If you raise your hand, it doesn't automatically go down until you manually lower it. And you can have fun with giving your funnest reaction. So go ahead and mess around with that. And then I want you to also scroll around it, scroll around the room and just see who else is here. All right, so let me scroll around my room here, see who we have. If you also feel so inclined, I would love to not just be the one, me and Devin here on video. So throw those cameras on if you are feeling so inclined. Make sure you're dressed, of course, and that no one's doing anything weird behind you. so much better. Thanks, everyone. That's great. Okay. So we're going to do just a little bit of introductions. Now that we got our names changed, we'll just introduce some of the key players here, and then we'll also just be cruising around. And then I'm going to have you answer some questions, some poll questions on Zoom as well. So myself, Heather Heward is my name. I am a senior instructor at the University of Idaho, where I teach a lot of classes related to fuels and fire. And lately, I've been keeping myself busy building a lot of classes for NWCG, which has been super fun, including S290, which we're reconstructing right now. If anyone wants to hang out after this meeting, I will tell you what I know about vapor pressure deficit. I think I just figured it out yesterday, and I've taught it to a couple people, and they get it now too. And so if you are always been curious about that, I will tell you all about it after this meeting. Optional breakout room into VPD. So the monitoring thing is something that it's not my primary gig is to monitor, but it does seem to be something that I enjoy teaching, and not just to my students, but to people that need to do this for their job. So I'm going to have the Allen Institute folks introduce themselves, since they'll be doing some talking today. Can we start with Virginia?
Yes. Hi, I'm Virginia Shafley. I am with the Wildlands from AI2. It stands for Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence. We are a private nonprofit organization based in Seattle. Our founder was the late Paul Allen, and our mission is to use AI for the common good. So our team is under the Department of Applied Science and Technology. We have different projects within this group. The first one is called Earth Ranger. They focus on wildlife conservation, helping park ranger and protecting animals. And the second one is Skylight. They work with the maritime analysts identifying illegal activity in the ocean. And they use ML, machine learning, and satellite imagery. And the last one, climate modeling, the name says it. They do climate modeling to better understand and predict climate changes. So we are the Wildlands. We're the younger one out of all our siblings. The rest of them have been around for 5-8 years. And we just started last year. And the app that you'll be using today is actually just launched it May of this year. So, and today I have a few of my team members here. So I'm gonna let me start it with Karen first to introduce herself.
Hi everyone. I'm Karen Goodfellow. I work with Virginia and a few others on the Wildlands team. So a little bit of background about the Fuels app data. So we were looking for a way to use AI in the Wildlands space, and we're really looking for a way that we could make a difference. And we kept hearing that a big challenge that everyone overlooks was surface fuels estimation. So we were searching for what to do. We came across Dr. Robert Keene's paper on photo loading, and thought if we could get a big batch of photo loading data along with the pictures that go along with them, maybe we could train a computer to do that tedious work. But we would need thousands of pictures, more than what was available at the time, which was about 70. So we got in touch with Dr. Keene, and he and Chris Stalling connected us with Heather. We reached out and made pests of ourselves for a little bit, and then sent a few of us from the team out to one of the workshops to experience photo loading firsthand. And so that trip inspired the creation of the FuelsData app. We thought if we could build a tool to make collecting the data easier, maybe we could start collecting more data and images so that we could train our machine learning model. So as Virginia mentioned, the app was launched in May, and it's intended to simplify data entry, do some calculations automatically, and then connect the images with the data. So we have a small but like super dedicated team, and we're committed to learning what's working with it and what's not working with it, so we can keep improving the app and collect a whole bunch of data so we can train this model that will like actually do even more of the tedious work. So that's a little bit of our background. And then we also have Patrick on the call too.
Yeah, thank you, Karen, and thank you, Virginia. Karen and Virginia really summed it up very well. My name is Patrick Johnson. I'm a software engineer on the Wildlands team, and we're the team that built the FuelsData app that will be demonstrating today. And the background that was given did an excellent job. Thank you, Karen, for the excellent background that covers it very well as to what we're trying to do with the app, what we've built so far, and the direction that we're going. So we're hoping this will be useful and a valuable experience. So thank you all for coming.
Yeah, so I'll add to that background a little bit. Like many of you, I don't know, let's try the hand raising thing. So here's your chance to do a reaction. Okay, so on the bottom bar, there's the option for where's my reaction? Oh, there it is, reaction. So you can like clap or thumbs up. Okay, this is a reaction. So raise your hand or do a little clappy thing if you have used Brown's transects before. Anyone used Brown's transects before? Planar intercept is what they're also called. Okay, so some folks have used Brown's, right? So I use Brown's quite a lot in my life as a seasonal, and I hated them because I was just very unsatisfying. You'd leave the field and you're like, great, I've got like 10 sticks. What does that mean? How many sounds does that mean for my field loading? What does it mean for my fire behavior? So my introduction to Photoload was taking my students on a field trip to the Missoula Fire and Sciences Laboratory, walking around in the hallways in Missoula and finding the publication for Photoload on the wall. And I was like, this seems great. And this was in 2013 or something. This seems great and not as new as it's not like it's new. It's 2007 is when it came out. And so I was surprised that so few people have been using it. I'd seen it, then I saw it later at a workshop at a conference. I don't know how many of you that are field going attend conferences, but conferences aren't like the best place to like incorporate field going personnel and to teach people things. But that's how they were being taught, is often at these conferences. And so then I picked it up as a method for teaching my students how to measure field characteristics before our burns, and just found it to be a lot more teachable. And then you leave the site with an idea of what your tonnage is, and then you just start to get a better internal knowledge of that. So when the Allen group reached out to me, I wouldn't say I blew them off initially, but like when someone comes to you and they're like, hey, we're gonna like make this thing for you for free that you've always wanted, I'm like, okay, I don't know who you are, but that's ridiculous. No one does that. And so then they're like, no, for real. It's like, if you don't start helping us, we're gonna have to switch projects. Okay, I'll help you. But it became pretty clear quickly that in order to get data, we needed a method to collect it. And I mean, I really do want this artificial intelligence thing to work out, and for it. But if all we get is an app out of this, I'm happy there too. But let's get it to the next step as well. So that's something to keep in mind as we are talking about this. The app is that it's actually a means to an end, which the end being, can we find a way to use the vast technology that we've got to make our lives more consistent and easier in the way that we collect our information, so that we do it more often and have better outcomes, better communication about our results. Let's see, any other update questions? Any questions or thoughts on our introductions of the kind of how we got to this point, part of our story? Okay, so now I've got some questions for you. The first thing that I want to ask is if you could put in the chat, why do you want to monitor? What are the things that you are interested in getting from monitoring? Throw that in the chat. And this information, it's going to be helpful for us as we're talking today, but we're also going to look back through it later, and we're going to have this inform some of the work that and the justification for why this group is investing so heavily in this project. Your responses here will help fuel that. Okay, wonderful. And I should also say that, so we're talking about fuel loading in this workshop, but I'm curious about your other monitoring needs as well, that, you know, continue to throw stuff in there about other things you're monitoring, even if it's not fuel load. That's gonna inform us as well. Okay, now I'm gonna, while you're continuing to type those, I'm gonna launch a question that you'll answer. This is about your monitoring experience in general. So you can start to answer that question. Oh, this is really fun. I wish you guys could see what's happening on my end. I can like see all the little bars kind of flying around. It's cool. I wonder how I can show you that. So right now in our poll, we have about a perfect bell curve between none and an extreme amount. I couldn't think of what else to, it's hard to make scales. Extreme sounds like a good word for amount of monitoring. I wonder if I can share that. Let's try that, Mark. Good idea. Can you guys see the poll from Zoom?
No.
Bummer. Well, I'll take a screen capture. That'll do it. Now can you? Yeah, crack the system. That's great. Okay. All right, so here's our experience levels within the group. That's great. And let's do another question here. Okay, so now I'm gonna ask you about, oh, okay, I can share the results too. Guess I could have done that before. Can you, well, I'm new to this whole polling thing. Can you see the results right now? Is it showing you somewhere? Oh, interesting. Fabulous. How cool. All right. So we're gonna do another question. This is gonna ask about your experience with Photoload. Go ahead and answer this question. Okay, so we've got some pretty experienced folks in here, some that it's new for. Let that settle out. Okay, so and that, have you take a look. So we've got most folks in the class have not used Photoload before. Some have a little and a few have a lot. All right, one more written question, then I've got a few more short answer like this one. Could you, in the chat, type in some of the barriers that you have to monitoring? It's okay if you submit more than one. This one would have been a fun one to do, like a word cloud on. Time would be the biggest one. Bang. I don't even know if we'd be able to see the other ones in comparison to time. Yeah. Okay, so while you're typing those in, I'm going to launch the next question as well, which is your role in monitoring. You could select multiple options in this. So again, typing in your barriers to monitoring and answering the question about your role in monitoring. All right, take an end on that one. Take a look. So a lot of folks working as a group to monitor, fair number completing it by themselves or supervising others, and some are not sure yet. Okay, and last question is how often you will use fuel load monitoring. General sense of how regularly you'll be doing this. All right. All right, so looking at the barriers, as we've talked about, time is a big one. Experience, personnel, staffing, inconsistent data, capacity. Yeah, so a lot of these barriers, we can't take away the barrier of time. There's just no way to do that. But the way that you can mitigate that, mitigation is always what we're looking for in this world, right? Is to teach people how to do it, and then they can do it faster. So I find that one of the reasons that people don't monitor is they don't know how to do it, and they feel dumb when they try. And then they get garbage results that they can't interpret. None of it feels good. And so monitoring equals not feeling good about it. And so then it doesn't happen. But if we can give people some tools that support their ability to do so and to feel confident about it, and to give them products that produce something without them having to give a ton of effort, then their willingness to do it increases, the time decreases. So there's ways to not increase time, but decrease the pull on it with the tools that we give people and the knowledge that we give people. So again, sharing these last results here, how regular people will do it. Mostly people are doing it yearly, quarterly. Some people are going to do it a little bit more regularly. Obviously, I know that that's going to vary year to year, snow season to snow season, etc. But generally, people are doing this a couple times a year, probably. Okay, so back to the presentation. All right, so let's just set the groundwork here a little bit with why fuel loading matters. And we could, monitoring is fuel load, just a piece of monitoring, of course. And so we could kind of include, say this is monitoring to not just fuel load, but we're talking specifically about fuel load today, obviously. So I like to think of the main job of monitoring is to assess change. That's tied to this other one, objectives, right? So you've got objectives. Let's say the objectives for this particular picture might be to reduce the cover of this, the shrub species by 50%. Well, we've monitored now, and it looks like we brought it down about 50%, right? Monitoring, that's great. Now we could do that with a photo, and photos are great. Powerful tool, absolutely. You need to teach everyone how to set up a photo point. There's plenty of time usually before a burn for someone to go walk around and take a couple pictures and then take up a couple pictures the next day. But that doesn't do as good when you're talking about like looking at a landscape and landscape change, and monitoring is really important for that. So monitoring, fuel loading, looking for change. Smoke's a big one. So a lot of you are working within systems of smoke management, smoke regulation, knowing what kind of tonnage of smoke you're producing is really important for a lot of people. Fuel loading is that way that we report consumable tonnage. So not all the fuel loading on the site is going to be consumable, but you take the fuel loading that you've got, you add moisture variables to that to estimate how much of it's going to consume, and now you've got your consumable tonnage estimates. And these assessing objectives, a lot of our objectives usually rely on reducing 1, 10, 100-hour fuels by, however many percentages, 30 to 50% or something like that, or maybe maintaining a portion of them on the ground, right? So fuel loading, it matters. What it doesn't matter for is fire behavior modeling. Fire behavior modeling does not include fuel loading as an input. The fire behavior fuel models do have general fuel loadings associated with them that, but you don't enter them as part of a modeling program, and that then puts out for you different fire behavior outputs. Intuitively, we would know that fuel loading makes an impact on fire behavior, but it's just not something that's currently an input in our fire behavior modeling programs. What you monitor is based on a variety of things, namely your objectives that you have in a given area. This could be objectives for prescribed fire. It could be objectives for, wildfires. Wildfire, often your objective might be to reduce impact by suppressing a fire, but it could also be to see what type of impact that wildfire is having and what kind of objectives it might be meeting. What you monitor is based on the amount of time, what you're required to do. Some of you have based requirements for monitoring and reporting. I know in a lot of the places that I go and monitor as a FEMO or a FOBS, what I produce for them, they put in reports that are going to show that they meet base minimum of their expectations for objectives for that unit. Often when I produce a report, it's like after a day of monitoring and it's a very large unit. I think this is not very much information. I don't know if you should use this as the only thing that you're saying is going to prove that you've met objectives, but that's kind of just shows the lack of monitoring that we have when even a teeny bit of monitoring is considered super valuable. And it's also based on the people's abilities that you have working for you. Building people up in an ability to monitor is a time investment, and obviously time is of the essence. One of the things that's a constant in this world of fire is that NWCG, the National Wildfire Coordinating Group, their job is to train people how to do a fire line position. Monitoring doesn't fit into any NWCG positions, duties, and responsibilities. Therefore, it's solidly within this whole of day job training. And whose responsibility is it to train people how to do their day jobs? I don't know. No one knows. It's kind of nebulous. So technically, it's the employer's responsibility. But employers, again, without kind of broad oversight or direction from a different level, there's a lot of confusion about that as well. So ability is something that often falls on the individual to be able to build those skills. So first of all, thank you for being here today. Here you are building your individual abilities to do that. And then you'll have the capability, hopefully at least starting other people's building of their capabilities as well. One thing that's important to remember in the monitoring is that it's so scalable that based on your objectives, time requirements, abilities, you can make it really small and just do very little monitoring. All you do is a photo point, or you can make it big and spend weeks. What we're talking about today, though, is monitoring. It is not research. Research is very different. Lots of time involved in that, lots of really specific things, and generally papers and whatnots. We need lots of research too, but what we're talking about today is monitoring. Okay, so here's the basics of Photoload. So Photoload is, at its simplest, a comparison. If your picture, this is our fuel bed, if it looks like this one over here in the upper left, then that's what our fuel loading is. So the people that developed the Photoload method, they took sticks, they put them in a frame, they took a picture, dried them, weighed them, put the number at the top. Simple as that. And it makes sense, stands to reason that if your picture looks like their picture, then that is also your fuel loading. So these are pulled from a document called GTR 190. I'm going to give you a second to all open it up. You're welcome to get there right now if you want to. But this general technical report is where these documents come from. Now, these are all broken down. There's different classes, size classes. So a 1 hour fuel is 0 to 1/4 inch. 10-hour fuel is 1/4 to 1. 100-hour fuel is 1 inch to 3 inches. So those are the main breakpoints that are kind of the rules of this game. What those times mean is the time that it takes for that fuel particle to reach close to a balance with the moisture in the air. Now, the air is always changing, and it's not actually, it's like 63% of that. It's, the point is though, 1 hour fuels, they dry out faster, they get wet faster. 10-hour fuels, a little slower. 100-hour fuels, a little slower. When you're talking about availability of fuels for burning, that's why we have these breakpoints. We had to choose something. So 1 hour, 10-hour, 100-hour, that's what we got, right? So we have these other two categories, woody and herbaceous. In the, what you'll notice in the GTR 190 is that it's refers to shrub instead of woody. One of the things that as we progress in using something, we learn things about it. And the developers of the Photoload method, when we asked them about what do we do with trees, with little baby trees that are in these units, those aren't shrubs, but they're a component on the ground that's burning. And so we've worked through that, going with the idea that we're referring to woody material and herbaceous material. Herbaceous material can be grass. It can also be this little leafy, lubby thing right here. That's herbaceous, it's not woody. So we've got those two different categories of living material. Recognizing that when we have a tonnage, it's referring to the dry amount there. In the United States, we refer to fuel loading in tons per acre. In research, they often refer to it as kilograms per meter squared, which for a lot of people is more intuitive if they are familiar with the metric system anyway, because you're talking about what's actually in that box. It's the kilograms within the frame. And so you could physically pick the sticks up and be like, how many kilograms is this? And that actually gives you an idea of its loading versus the tons per acre, which is you're talking about it within the frame, but then you're multiplying it by how many of those frames exist within an acre. So it's a little bit less of a conceptual thing to visualize, but because we communicate so regularly in the United States, especially in tons per acre, those are the units of measure that I've always used, because it's how you're going to be reporting especially your smoke, is in your tonnage. Any questions about just the general process for the Photoload method? We'll get into practicing here in just a minute. Thanks, Devin, for throwing that up there. Okay. So let's talk about plot design for a second. What I showed you here, this is called a micro plot. It's cute, right? A meter by meter frame. To make these, I go to the hardware store. I make them in bulk. So whenever I call, they're like, oh, here's the lady who's going to buy all of our elbows again. She's always buying 80 elbows at a time from the hardware store. But I just go to the hardware store and there's these bits of pipe, which are 1/2 inch pipe, by the way. Turns out pipe's measured on the inside, not on the outside. I made that mistake once. And I have about 80 sticks of inch pipe that my children now use to build forts, which is also fun. But anyway, you go to the hardware store and you get 1/2 inch PVC pipe, cut it into a meter. And then you glue on just one elbow. This is important. Only glue one elbow, and because then you can carry them all. You could use all kinds of stuff to do this, though. I've seen people build these out of wooden dowels. And they put Velcro on the meter and they just stick them together. Someone can get really fancy and jury rigs and tent poles. Sometimes people put elastic on the insides of these. There's all kinds of things you could do. But these microplots are the basis, and what you do with them, though, is kind of up to you. That's one of the reasons I like monitoring, is that it's really a form of free-form expression. There's lots of ways to build it. My go-to plot design is this bullseye method. I use this when I want to go back to a place. I'll put a link here in the chat in a second to the website where you'll go to download some of the documents that I've got these plot designs listed in, and some additional pictures we'll play with. But the reason I use this for my permanent plot method is that from one center mark, usually I mark it with a piece of rebar and a beer can that I get from the recycling center. So just put that on there, something nice and bright. And then I'll go out and put my 4 microplots in. This is also handy for doing trees. I'll use the center, the circle if I have a desire to have either a snag plot or a mature tree plot or something where I'm doing a fixed radius circular plot. When I'm doing just grass monitoring, it's easier to locate my plots sometimes when I have just a line, and I'll put a permanent plot on either end of the line, and then I'll put my microplots somewhere in the middle here. If I'm not going to be coming back to a place and I just want to know the general loading, I'll do a random. I'll just walk 2 chains, plop a thing down, and look at it. Or what is more often the case is that I'm short on time. And I'm short on, if I had all the time in the world, then I would do an actually randomized plot location. I would look at my map from a computer, I would have it generate random points, and it'd make the points, and I'd get the latitude and longitudes, and I'd walk to those places, and I'd put my plot in place, and then I'd come back when it's bright. No, it'd be great. No one's got time for that. So what I'm often left to do is I want to put my plots in places that, first of all, I will be able to find and that are safe. And then I'll locate them strategically, where I'll look around, I'll kind of walk around the area, and I'll look for a place that is generally high loading, generally medium loading, and generally low loading. And I try and do a minimum of 3 of everything to kind of capture those ends of it. If I did lots more, I'd probably see the same spread of numbers. I would just have better confirmation on what is middle. But because, again, limited on time, I'll put at least 3 plots in an area. And that is either 3 large plots like this, like the circular one, or maybe it's just 3 microplots. So again, I'll throw 3 random ones down in a low, medium, and high place and get that loading estimate. So the 4th option in here is what's called a macro plot method. We're not going to be trying that today, but I'll just briefly describe it to you, which is that instead of looking down at a frame, you go out and you just look across a landscape, and you kind of get a feel for what is the general amount of 1 hour, 10 hour, 100 hour compared to those pictures. This is what I often do when I'm out on assignment as a field observer, when I don't have a plot frame with me. And so I'll go and I'll get my loadings more generally, and that'll give me some information. Any questions or thoughts about plot design? Any techniques that other people have about plot design? Okay, so first, the moral of the story is there's no wrong plot design. There's ones that work for you, and there's ones that don't work for you. I guess the ones that don't work for you, those are wrong. So find a plot design that works for you, find one that's doable, and replicate that.
I have one question with the plot, with selecting plots. How do you determine if it's safe or not?
Oh, safe. Well, the main hazard when you are especially doing post monitoring is falling trees. So when I am concerned with safety, doing post-fire monitoring, this is when I don't locate my plots under snags or for example, like in I want to get in and out of an area relatively quickly when I'm doing post-fire monitoring. And so I'm not going to hike miles to put my pre-plots in when post I don't want to walk miles through trees that are being burnt out. So strategically locating them next to places that I can get to quickly, and that the quicker I can get to them, the less exposure I have. And I'm also looking around and I'm looking for things that could be aerial hazards within that area. Burned out trees sometimes happen. Like we went out monitoring, we monitored post-fire last weekend with some students at a place called Turnbull National Wildlife Refuge in Washington. And one of the key tenets of Turnbull is that there's a high basalt layer in the soil. So the basalt's really high, there's just a little bit of soil. And you see any tree that falls over and it makes a root ball like a plate. Like those trees are not deeply rooted. And the winds were upwards of 20 miles an hour. And so we like walked in, walked out, walked in, took a picture, walked out, like limited exposure as much as possible. And so, I mean, we chose not to resample in some of those areas that were just like, nope, not like the winds were picking up. So we left. So monitoring is secondary to safety, of course. But if you can set yourself up so that you're monitoring in a place that is a little bit safer post-fire, that's better. Good question.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to walk through that FuelsData app. So this is when we're going to play a little video from the Allen Institute folks, and they're going to walk through some of the functionality of it. It's going to be easier for you if you follow along. So open up that app if you've downloaded it, and you can click around as you watch.
All right, I need you to enable me to share screen.
You're good now.
Okay, cool.
Oh, if you it's not, is it playing yet? Oh,
Yep.
It is. We can't hear the audio. You'll have to stop share and then reshare and check the box for audio.
Oh, okay, hang on. Let me do that. Where's that?
Yes, you have to stop the share first
Okay.
and then reshare.
Oh, share sound. I didn't see that one. Got it. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Welcome to the FuelsData User Guide.
Better.
FuelsData streamlines surface fuels measurement, automating calculations and table lookups. Integrated photos and data remove sequencing hassles, minimizing errors in transcription and field reviews. You have two modes to collect data. Collaborative data entry mode. Use this mode if you're a project lead organizing team field trips or doing solo data entry. Share specific codes for collaborative contributions or collect data individually. The linking code simplifies data retrieval, ensuring efficient and organized data management. Contributor mode. Use this mode when you need linking codes from your project lead. Upload the collected data to share it seamlessly with your project lead. There are two options to share or consume linking code. Once you get to the visit screen, the lead organizer will have the option to share a QR code with a contributor by scanning it. If needed, the linking code can be shared and inputted manually. For this workshop, we will enter the linking code manually. Let's explore how to use FuelsData in collaborative data entry mode. 1. Creating a project. Click the plus button to start a new project. Enter your project name. If left blank, it defaults to unnamed. A project code is generated automatically. 2. Adding a visit to the project. Go to the Project Details screen and click on the Visits tab. Click the plus button to add a new visit. Enter your visit name. If left blank, it defaults to unnamed. A visit code is generated. Select the icon on the right to access your project and visit code. You can share this code with your team immediately, or you can choose to share it after creating a plot. 3. Adding a plot to the visit. From the Visit Details screen, go to the Plot tab. Click the plus button to add a new plot. Enter your plot name/number. If left blank, it defaults to unnamed. A plot code is generated. Click the icon on the right to view and share your project, visit, and plot code with your team.
I'm gonna pause here, Heather. Heather, do you want me to continue with the contributor?
I was muted, sorry.
Okay.
Any questions about that process? Yes.
Oh, one thing that Heather, that we want to mention is the lead will need to create the plot to share the code with the contributor.
Right. Okay. So let's go into a little bit about why this is. One of the benefits, I suppose, of having the AI, the Allen Institute folks attending these workshops I've been putting on is that they observe how the participants collect the data and the different hitches that come with that process. And one of the things that came up regularly is that I was sending groups out. It was one project area, let's call it the Bald Hill unit, right? So there's Bald Hill prescribed fire unit, and you've broken up the, you have two groups of people that are monitoring. One group is going to do plots number 1 and 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then the other one's going to do 4, 5, and 6. But they're all going to be contributing to the Bald Hill unit. And so how do we knit that information back together? Because what happens to this data is it gets uploaded and then compiled from the Allen Institute folks and then sent back to you. They need to be able to know what's connected. And so it's adding to a larger project. So that's where this idea of leads linking codes came from, where there's words that are going to match each other. And so you've got that, again, that leader and those contributor modes. And so that's how that workflow works out, so that everyone, even within a plot, because again, like I say, I've got four plots that I have, or 4 micro plots per macro plot. And so you could have 2 people working on 2 of those and two working on the other. So this is just a way to distribute labor across the different people you might have monitoring. When you're setting this up in collaboration, what if you're offline, off the grid? So that you don't need to have connectivity in order to set up linking codes, because it's not actually connecting them yet. It doesn't link them until the data is uploaded, which you do need to upload the data with connectivity, but you don't need to have connectivity to collect the data. Is that correct, Virginia?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other questions about this idea of linking different collections together? If you're doing this individually, then you don't need to do this enter the contributor mode at all. You would just continue to collect data, as you'll see in just a second. All right, go ahead and carry on.
Now switching to contributor mode. 1. Switching to contributor mode. Open the FuelsData application. Click the hamburger icon located in the top right corner of your screen. Select Enter Contributor Mode from the menu. Your screen header will change from blue to orange, indicating you're in contributor mode. 2. Creating a visit in contributor mode. Click the plus button to create a new visit. Enter the project code and visit code shared by your project lead. Select the correct words from the displayed list, matching the provided code. 3. Validating checksum. After entering the 3 words, ensure the checksum matches the one provided by the project lead. If it does not match, Please review your input by scrolling up to check all the words you entered and re-enter the correct one. Avoid clicking Save if the codes are wrong to prevent creating separate uneditable visits. 4. Creating a plot in contributor mode. Click the plus button to create a new plot. Project and visit codes are pre-filled, so enter the plot code. Select the correct words from the list, matching the provided code. Start collecting microplot data seamlessly. Let's walk you through the steps of creating a microplot, entering data, and using its features. 1. Creating a microplot. Click the plus button to create a new microplot. Enter a name for your microplot. If left blank, it will default to unnamed. You will see the default unit of measure is in English. You can change the default unit of measure to metric. Should you need to change it during data entry, return to this screen to make adjustments. 2. Data entry for fuel load types. In this section, you can start entering data for each fuel load type. Enter the required information for each fuel load type. As you input specific data points, certain fields trigger automatic calculations, eliminating the need for manual computations. 3. Viewing totals. After entering data for each fuel load type, navigate to the Total tab. Here, you can view totals for your microplot. 4. Enhance your data with visuals by adding photos. Go to the Photos tab to associate images with your microplot. Use your device's camera to take pictures of your microplot. Alternatively, choose photos from your gallery to associate with your data. Once you've collected data, exit contributor mode and click Upload Data on the project screen. Your data will be sent to the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence to build and train fuel load estimation models. For the time being, to retrieve your collected data, email us at wildland-fire-alerts@allena.org.
All right, so I just want to mention that we went through the manual process of adding the linking code if you're a contributor. We just released the update to enable it, making it easier instead of typing the words one by one many times. We have the QR code out now. So if you look at your screen now, you have the app. There will be 2 tabs in that screen that says QR code and linking manually. So that is still important, just in case the QR code is not working, you still have a means to enter the code. Any question?
All right. So let's get into it, huh?
Right, I'm gonna stop sharing.
All right. When you're setting up this collaboration, what if you're off? Oh yeah, we tried to answer the question. Some of you have experience using Survey 123 or field maps, which are other ways that you can enter data. And the difference is this one is, again, working toward an end state of an informed product that's going to fuel artificial intelligence recognizing fuel loading. I know that Washington had developed a Survey 123 for collecting fuel loading as well. So there are other means to collect this stuff. One of the advantages of again, going this way is that it's feeding into a larger thing, but both would be perfectly acceptable. And if you would like to use some way to enter data that you already have, which might be Survey 123, you can look into that also. But the nice thing we've got with the FuelsData app is that we have a lot of those calculations are taking place within the system, and then you end up with a collaborative number at the end, a combined number. So we're going to start with a little bit of practice. I'm going to put a document in the chat, and the document that I'm going to put in there is what's meant to be a training manual. So you're going to go to page 48. Don't go past 48 because that gives you the answer. So we're gonna start to practice. We're gonna like get our screens practiced here because again, we're trying to do a lot with just the one screen that we have. Oh yeah, go ahead, Virginia.
I just want to make sure that everyone can download the app too, and if not, we have simulator here to help you kind of see what's going on, how to enter the data. If not a big deal to do. We don't have to show that.
Anyone need the simulator up as well? Are we all able to get into the app? Cool.
All right.
We're going to be doing this first test as part of just the normal contributor mode or the leader mode. We're working on the names here. Collaborator. Anyway, it's blue. So you're gonna have blue screen. All right.
You can call it lead, Heather. It's okay.
Lead. Okay, thank you. 2 C words. I can't do it. Okay, so step 1. Let's click the plus sign on your main screen for projects. So you're going to be on this screen with project data, project details. You're each going to be doing your own individual collection right now with the field on page 48. I'm going to share this so we're looking at it. And I'll open this up myself. Okay, so on page 48, there's a couple things that I'm going to do to set my screen up here. I've got 2 tabs. One I've got my GTR 190. That was in the chat before, but I might just throw that in again. So here's the 190. And what I'm going to do on my screen is I'm going to have 2 different windows like this. I'm going to drag it's all about screen management. So I'm going to take my thing and plop it to the side and click over here. Oh, not that one. Make this smaller. Okay, so here's what my method's going to be. If you happen to have a book in front of you, that's great. You could also, in the field, what I've been finding is that I'm actually just pulling up the GTR on my phone and I'm flipping back and forth on the phone between the PDF and the FuelsData app. So you find out whatever system works best for you. So what we'll do is in your project name, you can just name it yourself, but just put it, this is the Heather project right here. You'll see that there's a project code with the 3 letters below that. And then you'll go into visits. And this is important because you often go back to the same place multiple times. So that's why there's a visit there. And I'm going to say, this is visit for the workshop. Doesn't matter what you put in. And my monitoring status in this case is pre-fire. And now I'm going to go into plots. We're just going to do 1 plot here. And what you'll notice on your screen is that you've got an opportunity to enter your latitude and longitude. There's also a locate button for your latitude. You've got that little button you can push that puts in your latitude and longitude for where you are, if you allow it to do so. Where's my zoom at? Okay. Any questions so far about getting your plot set up? Okay, I'm gonna name this plot number 1. And there's a lot of other fields in here, things like slope, aspect, fire behavior, fuel model, canopy cover percent. these are all optional pieces that you can add in. I asked to have those included because they're often what we're looking for when we are entering information for fire behavior fuel modeling, but those are not required. You can just enter stuff in there when you're in the field if you wish. So this is our plot. This is built under the idea that in a plot, you would have multiple micro plots. And so I'm going to click on my micro plots and click plus. My microplot name, I put my microplots in cardinal directions, and so I often name them north, east, south, and west. So I'm going to name mine north. And the place that I want everyone to get to is in the tab for dead fuels. So I'm just going to stop my share for a second and have everyone just make sure that everyone's on this tab for dead fuels. So does anyone need help navigating to that spot?
Recording in progress.
Okay. So we're going to do some estimates of fuel loading, and we're going to enter them into the FuelsData app now. Okay. From a picture, there are some challenges to estimating fuel loading, but we can do our best. I want you to look at the picture that I've got. So right now you're looking at my shared screen, probably the easiest thing to do versus looking at your own. And let's see if we can identify just those less than a quarter inch sticks. I'll use my cursor here. So I won't be able to do a very good job at knowing, like this one that I'm drawing right now, that one is probably bigger than a quarter inch. We'll call it bigger than a quarter and not count it in our 1 hour fuels. We've also got this branch that goes up and out. You see how looks like it's elevated, right? In fact, if I look at it from the side, I bet it's that stick that goes up there. The criteria for counting something is it needs to be dead, it needs to be downed, and it needs to be woody. So if you had a plant that was pithy, that was like a sunflower or something that's got a hollow core, it's not going to count toward your dead down woody material. This one is a little bit on the edge. Maybe it's a stick that's down, but it's got a branch that's going up. So would we count that? We probably would. When there's stuff that's on the edge, whether counting or not, then it's a good idea to put a note in to say whether you included it in your pre-fire fuel load measurements. So in this case, we'll count this one as in, since it looks pretty well dead. It's probably just a stick that's stuck in the ground. Okay, so for our 1 hour fuels, we got quite a few. Needles, pine needles, are not 1 hour fuels. Those are litter. And when litter covers up your 1 hour fuels, the stick underneath the litter is also litter. So that'll come up in some of the other pictures that we'll look at, but we're looking at for the exposed sticks. So just based on the pictures that we have on the left, someone throw in the chat, or multiple people throw in the chat, what are you thinking is the tonnage of our 1 hour fuels for this picture? So what I typically do is I'll go through the pictures and I'll get to a place where I feel like it's more than I would expect, or more than I think it is. Like I think for sure it's more than, or sorry, it's less than 1.35 tons per acre. It can be between these two. So if it's more than 0.45, but it's less than 1.35, then I can pick something in the middle as well. I can pick 0.6 or 0.8. Okay, So I'm looking at some 0.45s, 0.23. So giving you some context here, what we're talking about, just even with this first estimate, is that we are talking about a difference in loading between the estimates that we're getting of 0.25 tons per acre. That ultimately we are relatively close to each other, even with the different estimates. So I think if I were to estimate the fuel loading for this picture, I would probably be closer to the 0.45 group. It does kind of depend on how much of these sticks here are like stringers of cedar branches. So those ones wouldn't count for 1 hour fuels. Maybe I might go with 0.4 tons per acre. Okay. That's one of the reasons that you would lean toward doing more samples, is that the more samples you do, it washes out a little bit of the variation in your in the variability that you have with just one sample. Okay, a team would usually calibrate calibrate ocular estimates while together. And one of the things I like to tell my students when doing this is that it's important when you're calibrating together, because you'll be breaking out into groups in a second and doing these as a group. But it's important to make the decision in your own head first and then contribute it. That lots of studies have found that groupthink can sway one's opinion. And so you'll get better estimates when everyone decides what it is and then shares and then averages that share. It's an interesting human factor thing. Okay, so let's do our 10-hour fuels now. So everyone in your FuelsData app, go ahead and put in, let's put in whatever you thought it was. I'm putting 0.4 into mine. And now we're scrolling to our 10-hour fuels, okay? So these fuels are slightly bigger. And for the 10-hour fuels, for our purposes, we're going to say that this white one here and this one with the lichen and stuff, that those are hundreds. So we'll exclude those for now. And that the 10-hour fuels would be this larger stick going off to the side, this one going down the middle, and there's probably a couple other little chunks in here. This looks like there's a few chunks of this this gray one going off to the side. So again, throwing in the chat what you think the 10-hour fuel loading is in this picture. One method that I like to use for 10-hour and 100-hour fuel loading, because there's usually less of it, is I'll actually visually move these fuel components on to the side of the frame. When I'm out in the field, I'll do this physically. If I'm not too worried about manipulating the fuel bed. If I'm teaching, I'll do this, where I'll take the stick and I'll move it over to the side. And what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the total length of 10-hour fuel sticks that I've got. Oh, yeah, I think I remembered. I'm cheating for a second. I've remembered something. There aren't any 100-hour fuel sticks. Okay, so correction. These larger ones, we actually are calling those 10-hour sticks. So let's do some estimates again. So redo your estimates there, including these sticks as 10-hour sticks and not 100-hour sticks.
They're like an inch to me.
I know. I remember that I looked at that yesterday. I was like, oh, weird. I thought those were bigger than an inch. So what I'm doing in this estimate is I'm taking this stick and I'm putting it to the side, and it looks like if I added all those little pieces up together, that would have a little bit more than 2 meters worth of stick. Side, maybe almost 3 meters of stick. And I'm looking at my samples over here to the left, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm kind of visually squishing them over, and it looks like it's above the 0.23 as far as length goes, maybe closer to the 0.32 or a little bit below 0.32, maybe 0.28 or something like that. Okay. So again, what we're doing there is you can take the estimate that you've got, or the stick, putting it up against the side, which is a meter, and you see how many meters of stick you have. Okay. Okay, so here you are in your data entry. For your 10-hour fuels, you can go ahead and put your estimate of your 10-hour fuels in. I'm going to put in 0.28. And we've established that our 100-hour fuels, we don't have any 100-hour fuels. When you don't have something, it is very, very important to put 0. Because 0 is a lot different than I didn't measure it. If you're doing multiple microplots, putting zeros in means that it'll pull the average down. And then what you'll notice below the 100-hour fuels is that you have the option to do a decay class. If we had 100-hour fuels, just for the sake of looking at it, you'd notice that this whiter stick there, that has a decay class of probably a 5 or 4. And so what happens when you enter a decay class is that it's lighter. More decayed wood is lighter than less decayed wood, and so it'll lower the fuel loading for that 100-hour fuel. Okay, now let's look at our live woody. So in this case, there are a couple components that we're looking at. Any of the stuff that we have that is these circular leaves, these are woody. These leaves that are pointy, those are herbaceous. So when we step on them, they don't break, they just kind of squish. These circular ones are those woody materials. And I'm scrolling past here, these concrete tubes. These were used for 100-hour fuel or 1,000-hour fuel loading, and those were found to be unuseful, not useful. So you can go ahead and ignore those completely. We use the table instead that's in the back. So for selecting the picture that you would use for your herbaceous and your woody, when they developed these, it seems to me, I don't know why they just picked a lot of the same looking type of plant, but you're picking something that looks as close as you can. If you are from a geographic area like the Southeast, for example, you are likely going to need to create your own photo series, which is not as terrible as it sounds. And there's a GTR about how to do that. The short of it is that you put a plot frame down like this in a place of low, medium, and high loading, and you clip it all in that square, and you dry it all after you've taken a picture, of course. And then you've got a picture plus the loading for that area. Without that, what you end up with is just doing the best you can. In this case, this picture came from an area, probably, maybe it's from the same area that these were taken from. So this is pretty close. So we'll say, just based on cover alone here, that we've got, go ahead and give an estimate for that live woody reference shrub unadjusted. So what you're doing is just based on cover, pick the picture you think represents the loading that you're seeing from all of these circular leaves, all of the woody material. Throw that in the chat. Not very much, right? It's pretty light loading. Sometimes I even think, oh, what's the point of measuring this stuff? It's so minimal. But 0.15 seems like a good bet. So let's say it's 0.15. Now it's asking you for observed shrub height. So just for the sake of easy math for this example, let's say the shrub height that we have in this picture is 7 inches. And the shrub height that we have in our reference field bed is 14 inches. If our actual field bed is half the height of our reference, it's going to be half the loading. So our observed shrub height, let's put that in as 7. Oh, FuelsData app people, we should change the words there. Instead of shrub height, it should be observed woody height, woody fuel height. Let's see, could you use the PERT estimate equation? PERT is determined using 3 points: optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic. PERT combines probability theory. Oh, probably, yeah. That could be a fun way to get a consensus. Is that what you're saying, Kevin? Get consensus from numbers amongst your team? Cool. So observed shrub height is 7, reference shrub height is 14, adjusted probability, then the loading is, I have mine at 0.07 because my reference shrub loading was 0.15. I asked to also have this item added of shrub cover that doesn't have to do with loading, but it does have to do with, often we're just going based on increase the cover of blah, blah, blah. So one thing that we are tentatively looking at here is ways that we could use, again, photos to estimate percent cover, which might have some interesting potentials for fuel moisture if you have the right kind of camera. That's another story, but so percent cover, I'm going to put mine in as, oh, it's hard to say, 15%. Okay. And then herbaceous, this is the last piece for now. Actually, I guess we got duff and litter. We're close. So herbaceous is these leaves with pointy stuff, and the elongated leaves, those are all herbaceous. We could use, oh, we can't use the same. This is all woody, but here's some forbs. So these are herbaceous. So there's live shrub, that's woody, and then we get to live forb. Grass and forbs are both herbaceous. You could use one picture to represent everything. If we had grass interspersed here, we could just use one picture to represent both herbaceous types, but we only have a forb, these little forbs. Even though they don't look like this, again, we're going for more by cover. So again, last time here in the chat, putting in the loading based on cover for those those herbaceous material. What do y'all think? What's the loading for this reference? Not very much, right? Hardly worth our time, but here we are. It's important to note that it exists, right? If you don't do anything, then you won't be able to show that it exists, and it might not look like it was there at all. So one thing a common source of error for this method is to misplace your decimal point and forget a 0. So careful of that. So reference shrub, unloaded, I'm going to put it at, oof, not very much. Yeah, maybe 0.01 or 0.02. And then again, shrub height, this says 12 inches. These look half that height. So I'm going to say my observed height is 6 inches. My reference field height is 12 inches. And my percent cover here, oof, less than 5, but let's say, I'm going to say 3% cover. All right. Now this is the last tab, our duff and litter tab. Duff and litter are significant contributors to fuel loading. Duff and litter, the loading that they have depends on where you're at in the country, but as a general rule, you can take the litter depth times it by 5 to get your loading, and the duff depth and times it by 10 to get your loading. If you are doing a lot of duff and litter loading, and you're especially in an area that has really strict regulations, you could actually find out the actual bulk density of your duff and litter if you felt like being really sciencey. But for now, this system is built with those defaults of litter times 5, duff times 10. So if I were to stick my heel on the ground here, I would estimate that the litter is ½ an inch. So go ahead and put 0.5 inches in for the litter, and then it calculates the loading. And for the duff, I'm going to say that we've got 1.5 inches of duff in this wet looking forest, and that's 15 tons per acre. For your pictures, you can give this a try if you wish. You can open up your camera, and what I recommend that people do when they're taking these pictures is to take it from all 4 edges of the frame. And this just is a little bit of insurance that at least one of them is going to include all the pieces of the frame. That's kind of the main rule here, is that in order for this to work, you do need to include the frame in it. That's why it's a possibility at all. And then it also just gives a couple different angles. One of the things that will be interesting to see how it works out with the AI side is to see how it interfaces with shrubs that are covering up material. And so it's going to need a couple different perspectives is going to help that. So I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of my screen, check the box, and added that. And then when you go over into the tab that's all the way to the right, you can see your total tonnage at the bottom. The tonnage that I have is 18.26 tons per acre, most of which is coming from the Duff. So that's your first run through that FuelsData app. If you go and click the back arrow at the top from the microplot, you can see where you have mine is labeled north, my north plot, and I can go into a tab for 1,000 hours. So 1,000-hour fuels are not measured at the microplot, right? They're not measured in that little teeny square because 1,000-hour fuels occur over a bigger area. So 1,000-hour fuels are measured at what's called a macro plot level, which means that from your plot center, you go out at a radius of what ends up being 18.6 feet in a circle. You could also do 10 by 10 meters square. Within a 10 by 10 meter square area, how much length of 1,000-hour fuel is there? And what's the average diameter? If you did that, we will use our concrete tubes here as an example of it anyway. So for an area like this is 10 by 10 meters. And you could, just looking at our tab, our 1,000-hour tabs, you click a plus sign. You can either enter each individual log by itself, entering the length of the log and the diameter of the log. And then that's log number 1, then doing log number 2, length, diameter, and decay class. Or you can add up the length of all the logs in that area and average the diameter of all of them and put that in here as just one giant log, essentially. What this on your app is referring to calculate this are these tables that are in the back. And there's a lot of different tables based on the units that you're using and also whether you're using a branch or a log. And so what it's looking up here is with the length and the average diameter, what the fuel loading of that log is. But let's just pick one of these tube examples for a second, and we'll enter that for our spot. Okay, so if we have these two tubes, and let's say so total feet is 18 feet. So in my 1,000 hours, I'm just going to have one log. 18 feet is the average diameter or average length. And we'll say the average diameter between those two things is 7 inches. It gives me a reference weight. And then I'm going to enter the decay class. It looks to me like those have no branches, but they're not very decayed. So I'm going to say it's a decay class 3, missing most bark and branches. And that reduces the fuel loading of my 1,000-hour fuel. So now I'm going to click the back sign from the 1,000-hour fuel. And I'm at the page where plot's at the top. And I'm going to go to my plot totals all the way to the right. And what I end up with in my plot totals is the total loading for my north plot and for my, with my 1,000-hour fuels, total tonnage across the site is 20.89 tons per acre. If I had multiple microplots, then those loading between microplots would be averaged. All right, so that walks you through that process if you're an individual person. What I'd like to do now is have you go into breakout groups, and I'm going to get you some access to some pictures from a plot, and you're going to do a couple of plots here. So what we'll do is I'm going to get you a link to a place that has some resources for you to look at. So let's first go to Sparked Resources is the webpage that I use to post some material. I'll share with you what's there. Okay, so on this website, show you what we got. Okay. So this is just it's a website that I maintain sometimes. So don't judge me for stuff being out of date. This is just where I like to put stuff if I need to share it with people online. But here you've got a monitoring workshop handout with plot design. That's one of the where the plot design's described. Some instructions for fuel moisture, a quick reference for Photoload, Photoload sampling sheets, and Fire Beaver fuel model reference guide. These are some of the videos and resources that we've already looked at. This is the guide for creating your own photo load reference guide. And then these are the pictures that we're going to be doing in this exercise. So what I would recommend doing is you can just save the image or you can zoom into the web page either way. If you open up the image there, aren't these beautiful? I've got someone doing some graphics for S290. So impressed with them. They look great. So you're going to be just opening up the image like this and then doing some estimates of your fuel loading. So what we'll do is I'm going to see how many groups that they'd have here. I don't think I'm going to go into the contributor mode. It would take a little bit too long for everyone to enter names of things. But if we were to do that, the way that it would work as a workflow is that I would end up reading you a series of 3 words. And those words would be one series of words for your project, one series of words for your visit, and one series of words for your plot. But in this case, you're each going to act as individual entities, and you're just going to enter it from the mode in the app that is blue. So what I'm going to do is break out, you go into breakout rooms automatically. And there are 4 plots that you are given, north, east, south, and west. I would love for you in the time that we've got to get through as many as you can. I'll be pulling you back in 10 minutes before the top of the hour. So you'll have 20 minutes. Let's actually do 15. We'll have more discussion. So you'll get as many done as you can in 15. It might just be 1. That's fine. And you'll be in groups of 3 to 4 people. Okay. So in those breakout rooms, what I'd like you to do is download the pictures and enter the data from the picture into the app using the GTR 190 as a reference. Any questions about that? Okay, so when you come and report back, we'll see how different the numbers are from the different pictures that you did. Okay. So open all rooms. So you should get a notification here in just a second that you can jump into those rooms as we go. Okay. Here we go. I would spend a little bit of time introducing each in yourselves in your rooms too. That's always a nice way to start.
Plug in for any and all feedback. We'd love to hear what we can do to keep making improvements and make it useful.
Absolutely. And then we have a couple other projects that are getting worked on. Could we just share a couple of things that are in the
Yes. You mentioned fuel moisture, so we're gonna add that on into our app. That also still in the work in the requirements, so collecting that. That's like the process that we have, as we mentioned. We come to Heather, we get all the requirement, we learn about the usage, and Heather has been a great contributor in helping us shape our product. We learned so much from her. We get more excited about what we can bring into this app. So fuel moisture is one of them. And then cloud identification is another one that we're excited about. So we are in the prototyping stage. Actually, our director is doing the prototyping. That's how small our team is. And the other one, trying to identify the cover, the ground cover, and then the canopy cover closure, which one is so one or the other. So those are the exciting things that we are trying to add on to the app while we're waiting for you to collect data for us to help us. And then on top of the other improvements, so be patient with us. Like we mentioned, it's still a little bit, you know, like you need to email us to get the data. I know we know that it's a hassle, but we're trying as hard as we can to improve our app. So
Wonderful.
did I miss anything?
No, that's those are the ones. It's exciting to have progress being made by people. I don't know if y'all know this, but oftentimes in this fire business, the progress that gets made are just people that are within fire that just kind of have a side skill, and that to have actual developers making something for the field is really exciting because they're much better than we are. All right, that's all we have for you today. Appreciate you being here. Stop this recording for now.